Welcome back to Virtual Shakeup. I'm delighted to invite Jess Tyler, who is the Senior Vice President of Events and Strategic Development at Marijuana Business Daily, to join us today.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For quick introduction, Jess serves as Senior Vice President of Events and Strategic Development at Marijuana Business Daily, a division of Ann Holland Ventures. In her role, Jess spearheads the collective efforts behind some of the fastest growing conferences and trade shows in North America, including MJ BizCon, MJ BizCon Next, and MJ BizCon International, as well as regional conferences in Europe and South America. I would have to say that Marijuana Business Journal, or Marijuana Business Daily, I'm sorry, I always get that wrong, is probably one of the #1 brands in the industry, correct?
It is. So we started in 2011 with a publication, and then added the event in 2012. And on the business side, we've been able to grow both of those over the past several years to a place where now they are the largest in the cannabis business sector.
Absolutely. And I remember just learning about, I think it was Cassandra was at it might have been one of Transform or one of Sam Littman's events, but I remember hearing the story, and it was just such a success, event, the publication, the media, and everyone's sitting there like, are they crazy? Like, this is only legal in Colorado. And then all of a sudden now look what's happening. So just really amazing. But, when you and I jumped on a call to talk about, what we want to talk about today, I thought, you were actually really transparent with me about what you learned the most in terms of, having to handle 7 events that you had scheduled, 4 in person, and then this hit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think like many people in events, we've, had our challenges this year. I've spent more time this year canceling events than, probably even planning them. And I think what's been really interesting for us is that the cannabis industry itself has been growing exponentially this year, and really capitalizing on opportunities in the pandemic. So for us as a media and events company, we've had to really look at, okay, we can't have these events in person, but there is still such a thirst and a need for business opportunities and connection and education in the market, especially, with the election just last month in the US, 5 more states legalized. And there's a lot going on internationally as well. So while as an events and media company, we've had to rethink how we're doing things, and our core business model, needed to be shifted. But at the same time, we've had to take that and make sure that we're still meeting the needs of our audience, just trying to figure out, how to do that in different ways.
No, absolutely. That dynamic is incredible. So you have a shutdown, but you have an industry that is growing due to legislation. Mm-hmm. And probably people, because of the shutdown, really need the cannabis a little bit more.
Cannabis sales have certainly been up.
So you have this great market growth, but you're stopped by this brick wall in terms of helping them. And I think the other part that I find interesting is that because it's such a nascent industry, tell us a little bit more about the marketing and your customer, like how they're used to engaging.
Yeah. So they're used to an in-person model across the board. That is from our retailers who are used to, selling in dispensaries and stores, to how they're doing business, which is heavily reliant on trade shows. And like a lot of industries, there haven't been any real trade shows in person since, I guess, MJ BizCon last December. And so there has been a need to deliver the same value, but do it in a different way. And as far as the industry goes, they've used this time to innovate. They've figured out, curbside delivery and, different ways to do e-commerce. And then on the event side, we're educating them on how they can use data and advertising and other things than an in-person event to further their business.
So you've had to not only, pivot your business, pivot to digital. You've had to educate your customer as they're also transforming to meet the needs. So another element there, but that actually leads me into my next question, which is you were uniquely prepared, knowing or unknowingly, to handle this because you have a publishing arm, right? So you had events and you actually had a media arm. Can you tell us what that looked like before the pandemic and now where it is today and where you see it going?
Yeah, we have been very fortunate in having such a strong publication arm. We have a monthly print magazine. We have a daily news site, newsletter, both for more US-based and international, and a hemp brand as well. The interesting thing was, pre-pandemic, our event portfolio was our, largest revenue driver in the company. And with that, the publication, which is putting out breaking news, they're doing analysis on what's happening in the business side of the cannabis industry. In a lot of ways, that was our 365-day connection point to our audience. And then we brought them together in person in different markets around the globe with the events. And when we had to shift to being online, we saw less of a division between what each department in the company did. We had webinars previously that were free for lead generation and audience building. And now we're going to be offering content for the events online. And if that's in a paid model, what does that look like? So we've had to really take another look at our business to more integrate what we're doing rather than having one arm support the other. Now it is all integrated. People in our staff in the editorial departments are working on the events more so now, and vice versa. So that's been really interesting. And I think when I look at virtual and what we're doing in a digital environment with events, it's no longer an event strategy, it's a content strategy. And when you take a step back and you look at that, some of the products that you're offering might not make sense anymore, or there might be new opportunities. You have to really look at the audience needs and then build from there.
Absolutely. I always used to call our content, when I ran my own portfolio of media products, the editorial is the octopus head, right? And that strategy has to fit all of the channels, your different distribution channels that you're meeting your audience. It's whenever, however, they want to engage with you. But we took a poll really quickly about trying to understand what kinds of people we have attending in terms of their industry.
And the results of the poll are, so describe your business. 38% are an association. Let's put them on the screen here. Other, 25%. So what are they? And then event organizer, which might have been the most obvious one we thought might be top, is 13%. But you've also got corporation and consultants as well. Interestingly, no media companies or nobody that identifies as a media company.
Yeah, the media sometimes has become not such the hot word. Information business, I think now is really, or content business. Okay, so getting back to the questions that that I have for you in this, your business model, and now that you're talking about a tighter integration with your publishing arm, what has changed? And you touched on it with the content. What else has changed on your team in terms of handling sales or marketing? Are they merging together to handle the portfolio, or are they siloed?
So for us, both marketing and sales have always been integrated. They do both the publication and the events. But again, it is looking at, we are trying to reach the same audience with every product we have. And so understanding what you're offering and what subset of your audience you should be offering it to, and what the value is, and how does it, you have to be careful that it doesn't compete with other products you have. I want to talk a little bit about specifically our sales side. I have seen on the virtual event side that sales has made probably the largest shift. And that's because when you're selling an in-person event, your customers, everyone knows what that is. You call them up, you say, basically, do you want this slab of concrete? Here's, you know what you're going to get out of it. Maybe you know what's included in it, an ID sign, a table, 2 chairs, maybe carpet. Those things are very commonly understood. Now that we've made this shift into an all online environment, it's very different in that there's a level of education that's needed about what is the product that you're offering, what is the ROI, making sure that everybody understands it, from your sales team, who has to become the general services contractor and offer support and explain how the platform works and what they're going to get out of it, what they can do with it, to then you're talking to your customer, who's typically someone in marketing, who then has to go explain it to one of their executives to get sign off on it. And this process, we're finding, takes, where it was 1 phone call for a booth, now it's 4 to 5 phone calls plus demos plus video. And when you're really building the plane as you're flying it, that can be hard. So what I have taken out of this is that we really, the sales cycle is much longer. And so you need more lead time. I would say that you really need to have all of your information about what the product is you're offering up front. This is one of those things where don't go out with half of the information and then expect to add it back in later, because you could definitely lose sales on that. Training your sales team to be able to have all of the information, be an expert in the platform up front, that has been huge for us. And then, something that we did that I think really helped is, so right now we're actually in our main event final week of our MJ BizCon digital show. And we actually been running this event for 5 weeks, which has been a long 5 weeks. It's been a really good 5 weeks, but with that, what we were able to do, we had these pass holder days. So each day was themed. We did 2 to 3 a week, where one was on the Latin American market, one was on the Canadian market, one was on investing, and so forth. And what that allowed us to do was demo the live platform for the sales team. They could actually call a customer and screen share, so they understood what they were getting out of it. And that, that has been immensely helpful, and something that if you only have a 3-day shot at it, that makes it a lot harder on the front end to explain in advance.
That's brilliant. So you had a 5-week show. I mean, I love the fact that you created themes by day, so broader audience, but I go hone in on what I want. But on top of it, you have this sales, it's literally a live sales demo for 5 weeks. And you bring in other customers to say, hey, here's how the booth works. Or I don't like the word booth. We'll get into that later. Here's how the marketplace works. Here's how thought leadership works. Here's how meetings work. I love that. That's great.
And, I think what we've all seen this year is that the first time you make that shift to all digital, you don't have historical data to sell upon. And that is so hard. We even got asked how many. We typically have 35,000 attendees in Las Vegas, and we were being asked, well, if you're going online, how many attendees do you think you'll have? I was like, well, I don't know. So there's, without having that historical data. So we were able to start generating that throughout the pass holder days, that by the time we got to the main event, this week, we were able to say, here's what we're seeing. Here are the page views. Here's the leads per sponsor, those types of things that we didn't have before. So having all of that up front, I think is very helpful for the sales team, and just to, help them stay resilient, because when you have to go from doing, one phone call to 5 per sale, it's, it wears on you.
Right. And as a sort of a side note, I see that this situation is really going to put pressure on a lot of organizations to really rethink their sales organizational structure because of to get the revenue velocity, you're going to have very focused roles. And then underlying that is, just like you said, this whole thing about sales enablement. I mean, you have to be so prepared. You have to train your sales team. They need to have all the data. You need to get case studies done as soon as humanly possible because you're learning as you go. With that, talk to me a little bit about this notion of customer success. What did you do to ensure, while you're training your sales team who needs to be talking to these customers right now, so it's like learning on the fly, talk to me about customer success.
So I think starting with, we did our first virtual event back in the late spring, early summer. And I know I did what, now I'm kind of, preaching against, which is we took an event that we had in person when we were no longer able to go forward with it. We moved it to online, and that is more or less what I did. And what I learned from that was if we actually recently had a keynote, John Mackey of the CEO of Whole Foods, and he said something that actually really resonated with me, that if Steve Jobs in the year 2000 would have gone out and did a focus group with a bunch of folks and said, how do you want to listen to music? What would make it better? They probably would have said something like, I want to be able to have more music on a CD, play 2 CDs at once. No one would have come up with the concept of the iPod. So you have to really take a look at the underlying need of your community and your audience. And like Wayne Gretzky, you got to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. So for me, customer success has been really diving into where is the industry right now and how do we best serve that. And putting an event online is not exactly, the way that, is going to meet that need, because they want business contacts. They can get webinars, already. So it's more about focusing on the networking, focusing on delivering leads to sponsors and to your vendors. That piece is, I think, the secret key to success on that.
Yep, no, absolutely. So we've got some audience questions, but I have one more for you, and because I love this one, because I said this from the very beginning, there is no trade show floor in virtual. There are no booths. So talk to me about the language that you are inspiring your sales team to use now with this digital offering.
Yep. This one is very important to me. It was a shift that we made after our first virtual event, where in a live event environment, you think about if you're an attendee, you're walking down the aisle, and I can look over here and see this company is a lighting company. This company has extraction equipment. But if you're online, you're looking at a company logo, and that company may do 20 things. And I'm looking for this very specific product. So it's harder for them to scroll through an alphabetical list of company names and find what they're looking for. That is an initial barrier to virtual event success right there. So we didn't want our client base, either our attendees or our exhibitors, to look at this as a trade show online, because an exhibitor, what they're used to doing, and quite frankly, we work very hard to get, to make sure everyone follows these rules. They have to, in person, stay in their booth and let the attendees come to them. They're not able to go network or, go wander around the show floor and sell. In the digital environment, if they stay in their booth, they're, and just wait for leads to come to them, it's not going to be very successful for them. So we shifted to if you want to create a new product, you have to not use terms that already have definitions in people's minds. So we got rid of booth. You're not allowed to say exhibitor. They're all sponsors. We don't say expo hall. What we instituted on our event that's running right now, which seems to be going very well, is a product and services showcase where literally we have each company upload pictures of their products and information and description so that it's more like going through an Amazon experience, which all of our, B2B attendees, they're consumers too. They are people who shop on Amazon. They live in a digital world. They're used to how that works. So they can go in and filter based on what type of products they're looking for. In cannabis, it's usually, in a lot of cases, it's preferred to have vendors who were within your own state, just due to state by state regulations being so different. So they can filter by that. And it's turning it into a product first approach and setting up meetings to talk about these products instead of saying, here's my booth and let me tell you everything that we have to offer, because you're relying on attendees, taking that first step in to hearing, then what do you have?
You just hit on something so poignant, and I'll go to an audience question. And right after I say this is that the online experience has to mimic what people are doing online for both the attendee and the sponsor. If you're trying to force them into a new behavior or one that's very old, you're going to be in trouble. But I have a question from the audience, which is, what event products do you advise in this new world? Followed by, do you advise there be networking breaks during a virtual conference? Wouldn't that break the flow?
Love this question. I've done a lot of, this year has been a lot of trial and error. So I've actually tried a lot of different models on these. On the event products, there are a lot of platforms out there that are really great. I think you have to decide what you're trying to achieve first. So if you have a heavy trade show floor, the products you're going to want for that are going to be different than if you're heavy content. So, if anybody wants to follow up with me afterwards, I'm happy to talk to you about the research I've done in that area. But what I would recommend would change based on the platform or based on the needs. As far as networking breaks, my own personal research and 2 cents on this is that when you're at home, it's harder to keep attention and focus. So I have long breaks built in between every session. At most, I might do an hour and a half straight through, because as an attendee, you want to check your email, you want to take a phone call, you want to get up and get more coffee. It's not the same as being in person where you can go back to back. I do not believe that you lose people. I'm not seeing that in my own events right now I've had as much as 2-hour breaks. During that time, I think what really makes that kind of work is if you have a functionality where you can connect calendars. So I can go in and figure out the sessions I want to attend, and then I can directly connect it with my Outlook calendar, because, for me at least, let's face it, like if it's not in my Outlook calendar, it doesn't happen. And having that, I think it's not the same as going online. And if you've sat through like 8 hours straight of online content, like that's a long day. So more breaks, I think the better, and probably keeping it to, max 4 hours of content a day. So I don't think it breaks the flow. I think actually in this case, a break in flow is good.
No, for sure. And I think we're out of time, unfortunately, but the questions that were not answered, I'll get to, we can follow up later in written format. So thank you so much, Jess.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.